So, let's learn how to write rules. This is our only objective for this section of the lecture. Phonological rules encode how the underlying representations of sounds that we store in our minds, also known as phonemes, are realized as specific allophones. We'll call them surface realizations in specific phonetic environments. In writing a phonological rule, we begin by identifying the underlying representation of the sound we're trying to encode in a rule, that is, the relevant phoneme. We write it in slashes. Then we draw an arrow to the right and identify the surface realization of the sound, in other words, its allophone. We write the allophone in square brackets. This part of the rule is translated into plain English as the phoneme X is realized as its allophone Y. We now need to specify which phonetic environment conditions this realization. So we put a forward slash. This slash tells us that what comes after it is the phonetic environment. We write this environment in square brackets and put an underline, a horizontal line at the bottom, between the conditioning sounds. The line represents the target sound, and the specifications on both sides the conditioning environment. So, the formula looks like this. The phoneme X, written in slashes, is realized, as represented by the arrow, as the allophone Y, written in square brackets, in the environment between A and B. Here is a more specific example. The phoneme T is realized as its aspirated allophone T when it occurs before a stressed vowel. Now let's see how we develop a rule based on the data we observe. If we listen to the words city, water, ladder, potato, and rider, we will observe that in our minds we hear the phonemes T and D in them. But we're also aware that what we actually produce and hear is a flap. We can thus conclude that the sounds T and D undergo a lenition process. They become weaker. They are realized as a flap instead of the alveolar plosive that each of them is. The resulting flap is the allophone of both the phoneme T and the phoneme D. T and D share two features. They're both plus alveolar and plus plosive. They're a natural class of alveolar plosives in English. We then draw the arrow to the allophone. Because there is only one allophone here, we can simply put the symbol for the flap instead of writing out its features. After examining the data, we can determine that this lenition happens only when the alveolar plosive occurs in the environment between a stressed and an unstressed vowels. Thus, after the slash, we put plus vowel plus stress before the underline that represents the target sound, and plus vowel minus stress after the underline. This rule accounts for the variations we see in the data given. However, if presented with more data that do not quite fit with the rule, we can modify the rule to represent the phenomena observable in all the data we have. And that is how we write a phonological rule.